Good evening and welcome into our brand new off-season show, the Trypod Wide World of Punting, where we'll be talking about anything and everything that's going on in the world of punting. If you can bet on it, you can be assured that we will most likely be talking about it. On top of that, we will be having celebrity guests on to preview big upcoming events in not only sport but in racing as well. So let's get to it. On tonight's show, we'll give you a quick rundown. We've got quick grand final recap from the Storm Panthers over the weekend. Jacob is going to be joined by the legendary Jaycin Campbell to break down the Melbourne Cup Carnival. We're going to have some viewer segment suggestions that we'll go through, and always welcome to hear your new suggestions as well. Bit of a State of Origin preview. We'll be doing a full preview on Sunday. And then we're going to have the Wide World Tip of the Week to end the show. Jacob, how are you doing?
Great, thanks, mate. Very excited. I want to say thank you to everyone who is tuning in. We have done podcasts for 6 years. We have arguably just finished our greatest ever season because I think hitting 63% on best bets, 50-50 best bets in 2020 is as good as the 66% we hit in 2017. It gets harder to win every year. But as the name of this show suggests, we're just going to talk about everything in the world of punting and have people who are interesting, in the punting realm, and hopefully you guys will learn a lot from us and learn a bit more about us. And we want you guys to have input, to suggest segments, topics, guests, give us feedback. We'll be aiming for about 30 minutes every week, and if you guys can, make the commitment to tune in or to listen, this is available as an audio podcast. We're going to be doing our best to make it the show that you deserve.
Indeed, and to add on to that, if you want to come on the show as a guest, if there's going to be a big event that you know a lot about, or if you've got someone that you think should come on the show that's an interesting dude, certainly feel free to hit us up and we will try our best to get them on there. Jacob, let's start off the new show with a quick grand final recap. It's a Storm beating the Panthers 26-20, and we're not going to go through a full recap in this game, but what I will say just quickly, I don't think that either team played to their potential in this one, which was a little bit disappointing. Did you feel the same way, Jacob?
I will say I was disappointed in the sense that it did feel like a lot of things went the Storm's way in the first half, and I will say quite a few things went the Panthers' way in the second half, and it's just disappointing because of the whole tidal wave that went with the Storm in the first half. It kind of took away from what could have been a more amazing match.
I agree.
If it was closer. But we're going to go through the key moments. But I will say, a lot of people have said Penrith didn't play well and it's because of experience. You can only play as well as your opponent lets you, and that's kind of the hallmark of the Storm. They don't let opponents play well. So rather than taking away from the game, I want to congratulate the Melbourne Storm. Phenomenal performance with all things considered. And hey, congratulate to us too. We liked the Panthers.
Ooh, yeah.
We still managed to go 2-0 on our best bets, and we can explain why after we've played this little game.
Thank you, Nathan Cleary. And we've got a little bit of a game, agree or disagree. And we're going to talk about a few key moments because a lot of them were a bit controversial, not only in the first half and the second half. People have been arguing about it, since the grand final finished pretty much. So we're going to go through a few key moments. We're going to say whether we agree or disagree with the call. And you guys let us know in the comments whether you agree or disagree as well. We can see if we are on the correct side or not. And the first one we're going to go through, Jacob, was pretty early on in the game. The Storm getting the Olam penalty try to go up, 4-0 and then turn that into 6-0. I guess I might start this one off. I mean, I think to the letter of the law, the call is fine. I mean, Billy Slater used to do it all the time, and I think that's kind of why they brought that in there. So I didn't have a huge issue with the call itself, but it was just so brutal to have that be, the first try against you as a young Panthers side in a grand final.
So guys, if you agree, use your reactions. So agree is thumbs up and disagree is angry face. I didn't like it. I mean, I was the first person watching it to say that could be a penalty try. But then when it was one, I said, that's bullshit. My thing is, it's not really a kick because the ball gets dislodged by around the shin-knee area. He was just throwing his leg under the ball, so I don't like it. Let's move through these pretty rapid fire.
Let's go on to the next one. And the next one was the Panthers' disallowed try due to the obstruction. I didn't like this one at all. And to be honest, the way that they've called it all season long, they sent it up as a try. I can't remember who it was. It was a Brenko lead, wrapped his arms around him, and that's been confirmed a try pretty much all season long. I disagreed vehemently with that call.
Funny, I disagree with you. I actually think it was an obstruction. I think Crichton has a responsibility to skip back into the inside. I think as soon as you make contact with the outside shoulder, it's not going to be a try, and I think that is consistent. So while that was an unlucky moment for the Panthers because Mansour scores, you're looking at 6-all, it was called obstruction, and that's 2 in a row the bunker ruled in favour of the Storm. I can live with that one. I agree with that call.
Interesting. Let's move on to the Cam Smith try.
And just before you get to that, I just want to fill in the gaps.
Go.
So instead of it being 6-all, then the Storm gets 2 straight penalties, gets up to 10-0. Another moment within the game massively went against Penrith. There was an offload. An offload that went to ground, yes, yeah. And it was called a knock-on. Crichton picks the ball up in open space. We might have had a Crichton versus Puppy open field race, but it gets called a knock-on and Storm directly gets a penalty, so that's a huge moment. And then, of course, the Panthers are attacking again, and Vunivalu takes an intercept, goes to ground, gets up again, gets tackled by Mansour. Somehow the Mansour tackle was like a jet booster. If anything, he didn't slow him down, he pushed him faster. Yeah. And it was 16-0. So that's a couple of more moments. It's not the Storm's fault, but they all went against Penrith. And then we get the Cam Smith try, which, of course, the ball was dislodged by Coruscant. He just picks it up and scores. And I think it is 50-50. I think he's got control of the ball. He has a responsibility to keep control. And I think his arm got chopped and he dropped it forward. So for me, especially sent up no try, I thought that should have been no try. I disagree with overturning that and awarding Cam Smith a try.
And not only that, that's the worst fucking play the ball I've ever seen by, I think it was Nelson Asofa Solomona. He doesn't get anywhere close to touching the ball with his foot. And sometimes with those calls, they will go back a little bit further and say that's a terrible play the ball. And they just, obviously start the film as soon as Cam Smith picks it up. But that's honestly the worst play the ball that I saw the entire game. Let's move on to at 26-6, the total try when Isaiah Yeo runs around. Jacob, what do you think about that one?
And this try makes it 26-6, so it's 26-0. And I think it's no try. I think it's a clear obstruction. I think Isaiah Yeo runs behind his man, and we need to talk about this moment because that went in Panthers' favour. And this was right after Vunivalu bounced a knock-on that would have actually made it 30-0 to the Storm. So the game massively swings here.
It swings, but to be honest, there's 25 minutes left when they award this one, and I think they sort of said, I think the pen count was 6-1 in the first half in the favour of the Storm. They said, let's give them one back here. But at this point, it's already too late for the Panthers. But yeah, that was a bad call. And then the Hughes sin bin, professional foul. I think that this is fine as well. I mean, I think this is one where it's probably a 50-50 call, honestly. But once again, I think it's one of the ones where the refs have said to themselves, okay, let's not make this look as sus as it did in the first half. We can give the Panthers a few late calls. And the Storm were up by 3 scores at this time. Like, the Panthers weren't coming back anyway.
I'd be smashing disagree on this. I don't see why him slightly changing his line is any different to an escort off a bomb. It really wasn't a try-scoring opportunity, and I think it's a very harsh sin bin. And at this point, don't forget, it's 4 tries to 2. We had the Panthers plus half a try, meaning they had to score the same number as the Storm. Now, with 10 to go, when he gets sent to the bin, I'm suddenly thinking you score here,
right,
you have a real chance, and we ultimately do get a 4 tries apiece and cover our try line thanks to this call. So I'm not complaining, but it is another call that goes in Penrith's favour. I get your point. It's a bit too little too late, though.
Indeed it was. And then let's talk about just the game in general, Jacob. 26-20 final. Like you said, 4 tries apiece. The Storm with a couple extra pens there to get them over the line. Did they deserve to win? Look, I would say it's probably 50-50. I know a lot of people are going to say, look, the bad calls doesn't matter. You still got to be good enough to win on the day. But I really strongly think that if a lot of those early calls didn't go against the Panthers, we would have had a real game on our hands. So did Storm deserve to win? I'm not going to say a definite yes. I think, this is a coin toss game if that was closer early on.
We tipped Penrith, but I will say the Storm deserved to win. And while you can say, like, even I disagreed with a couple of the calls to give Storm tries, I think what you have to acknowledge is the Storm were playing a type of game to close it down and to slow down the game and to kick it into touch late because they were protecting the lead. If they needed more points, they probably could have scored more points. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, Storm scored 26, but you take 6 away and it's extra time. It doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
The style of the game played with Penrith playing catch-up. Can I go on a little monologue about GOATs? Because we saw Cam Smith, 37 years old, just won his 3rd legitimate title. He still looks as good as ever. This leads me to, we just watched LeBron like a month ago, 35 years old, won his 4th title. It's insane. He still does not look any slower. Tom Brady threw 5 touchdowns last week. He's 42 years old. He's not in his prime, but he's won 6 Super Bowls. And we're not going to talk any AFL, but let me just talk about Dustin Martin. 2015, 7th in the Brownlow medal. 2016, he was 3rd in the Brownlow. 2017, he won the Brownlow, the comp, and the Norm Smith, which is man of the match in the grand final. 2019, won the comp, won man of the match in the grand final. 2020, won the comp, won the man of the match in the grand final. That is a sport, AFL, where there are 18 players on the field. The way he dominates, he is 29 years old. So I'm not qualified to talk about the history of AFL, but I just want to, put him in the conversation with those other guys. Like, we should all just really appreciate witnessing guys at the pinnacle of their sport. And we don't know at this point recording like what Cam Smith's going to do.
Right.
But it's just something that we really enjoy as sports fans.
Oh, 100%. You're absolutely right. And I think sometimes we do take it a little too much for granted watching these guys like LeBron and stuff like that you talk about. And then once they're gone, we're like, well, shit, the league is a lot worse than it used to be. That's for sure. Look, coming up next, guys, that's just a quick breakdown of the grand final. We've got a lot more stuff coming up next, and with Jacob sat down with the Jaycin Campbell, the horse racing expert, to talk about the Melbourne Cup Carnival. So we're going to go through 10 minutes of that, and we'll be right back after that. Jacob, do you want to introduce it before we get to it, or is that fine?
No, guys, hopefully you enjoy. Here's my chat with Jaycin Campbell from earlier today.
Yeah, currently for the last 12 months or so, racing has been my full-time job. Basically a full-time form analyst where I just look at the races most days a week, write for a few websites, and obviously have my own little paid subscription going on.
How good is that, mate? Living the dream. You're 19 or 20 years old, right?
Yeah, 19. Just
19 years old. My first question is, when it comes to sharing tips a few days out, how do you handle the fact that you don't have all the certainty regarding the conditions, the weather, the track rating?
It's very difficult sharing tips, especially like 72. Like on Wednesdays for Saturday tips, very difficult. I don't really do that unless I've been really watching a horse throughout its preparation. I'm really confident that this is its race and it's being set for this race. Basically, the first thing I do early in the week is just really skim through the fields and look who's racing, what they've drawn. Just look at jockey and trainer combinations. And then as the week starts to progress, I look at the weather conditions and then try and predict if there's going to be any certain track bias on the day. And then obviously it becomes more the visual and the sectionals, and the real form comes around generally Thursday night, Friday, for giving out tips generally on a Friday night or a Saturday morning.
That makes sense. So we appreciate you being here, and you can share whatever insight you have. What are you, with the Melbourne Cup coming up, what are you looking for in the lead-up races to help you pick who might succeed next Tuesday? And also, can you share anything that you might see that would discourage you from backing a runner?
With the lead-up races, I'm generally looking for horses that are strong towards the line, because as we know, the Melbourne Cup is a 3,200-metre race, so you don't want your horses over the lead-up races. Generally, the distances are only between 2,000 metres to 2,800, 2,600. You don't want your horses weak to the line in those races, because if they're going to be weak over that distance, obviously over a much longer distance, they'll be even weaker. Generally, right now, this early, it's hard to say, just because I haven't really gone deep into the race. Basically, just skimming over the international runners, just for trying to get my knowledge up on those. With most of the Australian runners, I know them inside out, but with the internationals, I haven't really heard of too many of them, to be honest with you, because I don't really follow international. So just watching replays on YouTube to see how their action is, who they've beaten, and the form going through those races.
Mention some of the big races Saturday and the Melbourne Cup as well. What are you looking at? What do you like?
We'll start with the Derby. Jacob's given me 3 races to look at, so I've written a few notes down on each race. I think the key with this race is finding the strongest lead-up event, because a lot of these horses have raced against each other recently. It makes it a bit easier to get a guide on where they all rank against each other. I personally feel like the Group 3 Caulfield Classic is a race that we can sack a lot of the horses out of. It was a slowly run race where they sat and sprinted, and it was hardly a fitness test. Victorian Derby over 2,500 metres, generally a fitness test. You want the fittest horse. That with these juvenile horses, it's really good to. I really enjoy targeting these races because they're younger horses, and generally there's only 2 to 3 horses that can generally win the race. With the older horses, it's a bit of a mixed bag. The only horse we'd take out of that form reference that I mentioned earlier would be Hit the Shot, who arguably should have gone close in the Derby trial. He finished off better than anything in that race, both visually and sectionally. However, I found it hard to go past the favourite here in Young Werther. He missed what looks to be a crucial run in the Vars last week. However, last week, as we know, Moonee Valley was bottomless, and I think it was a good decision from trainer Danny O'Brien to pull him from that race so he didn't have a bit of a gut buster 7 days before the big Derby. I saw an article too yesterday, Danny O'Brien commenting that he's happy with his progress and fitness won't beat him. So I think he's a lightly raced horse who is untapped and has a lot of potential. Long, lengthy horse, 2,500 metres she should eat up, and he'll love Flemington. And as I said earlier, the value in that race probably hit the shot around double figures almost.
That Young Werther, right? What odds are we looking at vicinity for that?
Last time I checked is around like $3 to $3.50, and hit the shot around $9, $10. So
cool.
Those 2 I'd be looking at early days. With the Golden Eagle, Rose Hill is going to be bottomless this week. We've already had a lot of rain here in Sydney recently, and there's a lot more forecasted. So by then, I think this race is like race 8 or race 9. By then, the track's got to be absolute mud, basically. So it's going to be really hard to predict. There's going to be like 1 or 2 fast lanes, and whatever horse gets that fast lane basically should win the race. And I wouldn't even be surprised if the racing meeting doesn't go ahead if all the rain that's forecasted actually does hit. Maybe like a 5 to 10% chance, but that's still that chance. The barrier draw was yesterday, made the race even more stickier. Alligator Blood drew wide, Funstar drew wide, Flip drew wide. A lot of other favourites in the race just drew wide and terribly. A large number of these horses could win. They're all tightly compressed with the weights and whatnot. Happy to stick with Ice Bath here at a bit of odds. She's a very handy mare on her day and has had absolutely no luck this preparation. However, she did get a win last weekend. She won by 4 lengths and she was smashed in the market. She draws well here in barrier 5 and can roll along and find an off spot midfield. I believe she's a really good wet tracker, and she's profile is very similar to last year's winner Punting, who was a mile back to 1,500 metres. Other notable mentions in the race, Petiga. Has been very unlucky his preparation, but can
move to the big dance then, the Cup, so next Tuesday. And I understand this field's not set. Maybe you can talk about how many are even officially in, and what, is there any race to watch this Saturday that could impact the field or the chances? But also, is there anyone you like this far out?
To be honest, I think the horses that are in the field already are probably the only horses that can win. I don't think any of these. There's a Bendigo Cup today that could maybe push a few of them up the order. And then there's the Hotham, I think, on Saturday. But I can't see any horses backing up from Saturday to Tuesday. Very rarely does that happen. It's generally looking for those Northern Hemisphere 3-year-olds. They carry the lowest weight in the race, and they generally have the untapped potential. We don't really know how good they are. So they're the ones that generally, if you can find the best one of those, then you're generally on the right path. This year, that horse is Tiger Moth. He's currently the favourite, so obviously the bookies are starting to catch on to that. Two of the last 3 winners have fit that profile. So and last year El Paradiso fit that profile, and he came 3rd and was very unlucky not to win the race. I don't know if I've seen enough from him to say there's your winner, just because he's still so lightly raced. Not as confident as I was last year with El Paradiso. Anthony Van Dyke was enormous in the Caulfield Cup. However, carrying top weight in this race hasn't really worked out in recent years. The last winner was in 2005 with Maccabi Diva. Another horse, I'm just basically going through a few horses I don't mind, if you don't mind.
For sure.
Master of Reality should have won this race last year. I was on him at a bit of a price. I was a bit disappointed where he ran off the track and bloody caused chaos. He only goes up half a kilo, and he's had a few good lead-up runs overseas, obviously, and he's another good chance at a good price. Of the local hopes, I still feel Surprise Baby is the best hope. He hasn't had the amount of hype that he had last preparation building into this race, so he's just been quietly ticking along, just like the Melbourne Storm every single year. They quietly tick along, and they always show up when the big dance is there. I think he's our main hope. Very elegant class mare, but 3,200 meters is a huge question mark. Different pain barrier for me. I love her, and I think she's the best middle distance horse in Australia and possibly the world. Might sound a bit stupid in saying that, but I think she's really good. But 3,200 meters, I think it's a bit out of her wheelhouse. Russian Camelot, a bit overhyped for me, in my opinion. He's a good horse, but he isn't the horse everyone says he is. The roughie that I have warmed to in this race, he's 50-1. Don't know why I've warmed to him, but just sort of have a bit of hunch that he's going better than everyone's thinking and saying. The 8-year-old hurdler Stratum Albion definitely doesn't profile to win this race, and I don't think there's been many hurdlers that have actually won this race. I don't really know the stats on that, but we're getting $50. I thought he's Group 2 in the he's second in the Group 2 Lonsdale Cup was visually impressive. Who have no concerns with the journey and could run a good race if he acclimatizes well. So that's a bit of a wrap on the Melbourne Cup, but at this stage, I think the ones to be with would be Tiger Moth, Master of Reality, and Surprise Baby, and Stratum Albion. Those are the 4 I'm probably looking at right now.
Appreciate it, mate. I understand you have not done all your work and all your deep dive on that race yet, but appreciate you sharing your thoughts on that. And there's a few for people to consider and throw in exotics, and you've shared your thoughts. I got to let you go, but I'm admiring your T-shirt there, mate. So can you explain, because that's actually something that other punters could get aboard if they can read that: back pike, drink what you like. Can you talk to us about this special offer that we've got and your little venture for listeners who are interested in punting attire?
The back pike, drink what you like. You can see that. So we've got the great man. We've got his signature. He's teamed up with us, so it's really exciting. So basically, Punter's Wardrobe is the website.
Thanks again, and good luck with all the big races coming up.
Thank you, Jacob. Appreciate you having me on. Cheers.
And thanks again, Jaycin. So as you guys saw on screen, or for those who are just listening to this as a podcast, every week we're going to ask for a celeb pick. So whoever we get on, they're going to give us a pick, and we're going to celebrate whichever celebrity over the summer gives us the highest odds winner. He's gone straight off the bat with Ice Bath in the Golden Eagle at Rose Hill on Saturday, 26-1. That's available on several bookies. He did say grab the fixed odds because it could drop. Let's move into some of the viewer suggested segments, guys, and send us more anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. So like Jacob said, send us in any others. These are just a few of the ones that we've gotten so far. Look, we're not going to go into depth today, but these are some ideas that if you want us to talk about it on the pod at some point during the season, send it in to us and we will get to it. Kieran has asked for stories being behind getting banned by the bookies, and I can tell you this is going to be in multiple pods, I think, Jacob, because we've got a myriad of stories of getting banned from double-digit bookies,
When we started punting, we didn't even know that was a thing. But we have gone through the whole gamut over the years. And I think something that's going to be really worthwhile for you guys is advice we can give you about avoiding this or prolonging it, camouflaging your account. So there's lots of good we can talk about. If you guys like these kind of topics that Alex brings up, smash the react buttons as well so we know which ones you want to hear most about.
Yep, or just comment in the comments section. Clinton and Matthew are asking for novelty or obscure bets, and we will be getting into a few of those because like you guys know, it's off season now in the NRL. There's still NFL going on, but we've got a completely separate pod for that. And when we're going to be scraping the barrel of what's on this weekend, there will most certainly be some obscure bets in there. And like Jacob teased before, we have, I would say, a novelty and obscure bet coming up at the end of the pod today.
Yeah, COVID does funny things. I've put my hand up. I was betting on the NBA 2K tournament, so betting on people playing 2K. So
you won.
So, we'll bet on anything if we can get the right price.
We absolutely will. Nick and Jake are asking for us to talk about some NRL off-season news and some 2021 early predictions. We will definitely get to that, and I'm sure there will be a lot of NRL off-season news coming up. Flanagan's already said goodbye to the Roosters. We'll find out where he ends up next, so I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about in terms of the NRL as well, so we will get to that sort of stuff.
Well, Flanagan's going to the Bulldogs, and I actually think everyone's making a big deal that I believe it's pretty much a done deal, and everyone's saying, he did the wrong thing. The fact is, the Roosters are stacked at 7, and the son of Ben Walker, Sam Walker, the new prodigy, is probably going to be their new 7. So I don't think they've stitched up Flanagan by dumping him. I think they've done him a favour, let him find a new deal. But yeah, we're going to make early predictions, and anytime there's any key personnel moves, we'll talk about it for sure.
And the legend Jeff Craner is asking us to talk about paid tipping services, and I think we can definitely do that. I mean, we have done a few pods in the past where we've talked about some paid tipping services, but we can definitely delve in a little bit deeper into that one. And I guess the issue is, if there's any in particular that you want us to talk about, I don't know how that works, if we can really get into that, but we can have a general discussion on that for sure.
Jeff Craner is a legend shout-out. I think this was a different Jeffrey who sent that one in.
Oh, was it? Okay.
One thing I'd love to talk about with paid tipping services is just like, you guys decide what to do. You got to make the smartest choice with your money. If you listen to us, hopefully you do make a lot of smart choices. We can give you a lot of advice of just what to look for to identify who is a good, legit tipster, and then you can take that information and then apply it and see whether someone's tips are worth paying for.
Indeed, and then we had a bunch of people asking for us to chat about all sorts of different sports, NFL, EPL, college football and that sort of stuff. And we will get to that. Like I said at the start of the show, we're going to talk about whatever events are topical that week, and and we're going to have our own NFL pod. So whatever other sports are topical that week, you can guarantee that we will get there. Maybe we will talk some Latvian badminton at some point, but yes, we will talk all sorts of different stuff.
And Big Bash, and you are a former professional tennis player as well, and there's tennis tournaments coming up too, so we'll for sure cover everything, as the name of the pod suggests, in this wide world.
Indeed, and that'll do it for all the for the listener stuff. Now, like Jacob said, if you've got any other ideas, feel free to send it through to us. We will get to it at some point. But let's talk a little bit of State of Origin 2020, as we know that's coming up next week. And I kind of like it being after the season now. It doesn't, impact teams during the season. And I really enjoyed the NRL season this week. And we will have some bets on the State of Origin, but we'll be doing a full deep dive on Sunday. So make sure you check all of our channels for Sunday. But, I guess the big story here is that New South Wales are probably the biggest favourites that they've been in 2-3 decades, Jacob, with this team. They're saying it could possibly be the best New South Wales team that they've had in a long, long time. And on top of that, Queensland, not only with a thin pool of players to choose from, but also some key injuries to some key guys.
And of course, the season's just ended. We've got Origin, so I'm bloody happy about it. But the one downside is you've got the players that need off-season surgery. Like, I didn't know that Kalen Ponga finishes playing in week 1 of the finals, and then, he's not available for Origin, he needs shoulder surgery. So that's the downside. Queensland was thin enough to begin with without, losing guys like that. As you said, we're going to break down Origin 1 more in depth, and if we've got any best bets, share them. That's going to be Sunday night, 7 p.m. We're going to be joined by Clarkey from Clarkey's Rugby League column. So this is more general thoughts, and here's my thoughts for Queensland. They have to pick Harry Grant at 9. Obviously, DC's captain and 7. Munster, I just hope he recovers from his almighty bender. And Brimson has to be the 1. I will say the pack for Queensland is not weak. We've got Papali, arguably the best prop. You've got the Storm threesome, Kaufusi, Welsh, Fasil Malaawi. You've got Jai Arrow. The outside backs is where it gets ugly. Any thoughts on the Queensland team?
Yeah, I think you pretty much named it all, mate. And I agree. I think Brimson should be the 1 there. I mean, it really hurts not having Ponga there and Andrew Fafita, that's for sure. But I think you're right. David Fafita, sorry.
Yeah, massively.
I think it really hurts this Queensland team. And, I agree. While I agree with you that Harry Grant needs to be there instead of Friend, shout out to Reid Marnie. I mean, really good season. I know he got injured for a little bit there, but he's just going to have to bide his time for God knows how long now.
And New South Wales, I'll just start off with Teddy's fitness is a question mark. I saw at the Dally M, he had a knee brace. If Teddy doesn't play, obviously you'd probably slot in the Dally M medalist, the Clive Churchill medalist, Pappenhausen, at number 1. But that would still be a loss for New South Wales. I think the halves have to be Nathan Cleary and Luke Keary.
Agree.
Notwithstanding the form of Cody Walker, it was unbelievable. I still couldn't fit him in. That just talks about the depth they have. Interesting, Coruscant couldn't make the 27-man squad. Obviously, they like Damien Cook there. Maybe if he got injured, they could bring Coruscant in. I think clearly they have the forward and outside back depth, like superior by a mile. So where does Queensland find an edge? I mean, Freddie's done great things with this team the last 2 seasons. As we know, they've won the last 2 years. But if Bennett can get Queensland playing the way he got South Sydney playing, I mean, that's about Queensland's only hope.
It really is. And like you said, like, wouldn't we just love to be able to have Cody Walker in the halves for Queensland? Wouldn't we love to be able to have Jerome Luai in the halves for Queensland? And not only that, look at some of the guys that are missing out on this Blues squad, you know? Clemmer, an absolute monster. Wade Graham, one of your favourites, Jacob. Like Ryan Madison, these guys can't even make the New South Wales Blues team. They would be one of the first picked in the Queensland team. So despite us being Queenslanders and going for Queensland, and State of Origin is always a grind and you never know who's going to win, you know, this is one of those years where if the Blues fuck this up, then they should be very unhappy. That'll do it for the State of Origin talk for this week. Like we said, we're going to do a full deep dive into the State of Origin on Sunday night. And now the fun part, Jacob. The Wide World Tip of the Week. And you've left this one up to me, have you? Or did you end up going searching and find one as well?
I could not find one in time that I could genuinely endorse, but I'll just say what's been on my radar. Congratulations to the LA Dodgers. They won the World Series today. There was a crazy Game 4 in that series that they lost, but they recovered one at 4-2. Sorry, I'm disappointed we could have had a World Series Game 7. I'm not a big baseball guy, but that is always pretty epic. We've got to talk about BLEDISLOE. We'll just acknowledge that that's Game 3 on Saturday, and it's in Australia. Australia did do well to get a draw in Game 1 before losing by 20 in Game 2. So that's Saturday, and there'll be people tipping that in the group and in the app. Champions League was on this morning. That's the pinnacle of really football in the world, in Europe, and there's games on tomorrow. Again, there's people who tip that. There's another big event coming up too in a week from now, and that's the US election. And you lived in the States for a few years. You've done a little deep dive, so I hand over to you for the worldwide tip of the week.
I went to college in Boise in Idaho, which was a Republican stronghold. It actually was the one state in America where per capita the most Republicans showed up for the Republican nomination. So I looked a little bit out of place there. But look, my bet for the week, it's a value play. It is $4.30. You're going to find this one on Ladbrokes. It is for the Democrats to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. You'll find that at $4.30. I'm not going to get into the deep dives of the states and the voting or anything. All I'm going to say is that on Sporties, Michigan and Wisconsin to win by themselves is $1.53. So that would make Pennsylvania, you would think, a huge underdog to win. But no, hang on a second. You pop on over to Sporties. There's a market which has the Democrats to win, Pennsylvania, and Ohio. Then there's a market that has the Democrats to win Pennsylvania. For the Republicans to win Ohio, just switched around. They're $2.25 and $2.20. What that tells me, Ohio's the swing state. It's $1.90 for either one of those to win. That tells me Pennsylvania is a lock. It's $1.10. $1.10 to win that one. This should be under $2. $4.30 on Ladbrokes. Democrats to win Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. Lock it in.
Have you put that up on the screen in text? If you
no, I fucking didn't have enough time.
You should comment that just so people can follow it, because it sounds good to me. I trust you on that. And that's our show. That's our first show. Good work, mate. Thank you to everyone who watched, and as always, just please show us your support just by spreading the word, by interacting, by showing us that you care about us putting in the effort to bring you this show. Coming up, we got our NFL pod every week. That's a 15-minute preview with our best bets, and Week 8 preview will be on Saturday. As we said, Origin 1 preview Sunday night, 7 p.m. live with Clarkey from Clarkey's Rugby League column. And then while we want to do this show on a Wednesday night, in a week's time, it's Origin 1. So we're going to move the show to Thursday night so we can actually recap Origin 1 as part of Wide World of Punting Episode 2.
Indeed we will. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the first episode of the Wide World of Punting. Thanks again for Jaycin Campbell for joining us for the interview. And we will see you guys Saturday morning, like Jacob said, for a breakdown of the NFL Week 8. Catch you all then.
Lego.